Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Nate and Josh come in here on a Wednesday as we get ready for this All-Star break. One more day of games after this, but a lot of teams on their final games tonight on Wednesday with 13 before this NBA All-Star break takes place this weekend. We've got best bets in this video. We also have player props up as we do each and every weekday, so definitely want to make sure to subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Use everything we have up on the site right now, including that odds finder tool that helps you get the best odds available to you from all of these books that are giving us bets this season. Nate, let's just run right into your first best bet here for this big old slate on Wednesday.
The Washington Wizards under 110.5 team total. It's pretty appealing, honestly. I mean, they're at New Orleans here. The Pelicans have been playing absolutely lights out defensively, and 7 of their last 8 have been on the road. Despite that, they are number 1 in three-point defense, number 2 forcing turnovers, 2nd and 3rd in fast break and second chance allowed, 6th in paint points, allowing 105 a game. They allow 105 a game in wins this season, and they're minus 12.5 here. So, I mean, it is correlated just like, if they hold them under 110, you expect them to probably cover this spread. The Pelicans offense is kind of off and on, as you know. Sometimes it's clunky and weird, but I think the safer bet here is just Washington not being able to score against a good defense, which, I went through the numbers last week when they played Cleveland. It was like, look at this game log. Like, they do not get 110 if it's even a remotely good defense. And sure enough, Cleveland held them to 106. Washington just scored 105 against Dallas, as we know, a terrible defense despite their trades. And that was one of their most competitive efforts in recent memory here. And that, now they're on a 7-game losing streak, and they've only really been able to score in terms of paint points and fast break points, which I just mentioned. The Pels do not give up. The Pels back home, their only home game in this 8-game span, they crushed Toronto 138-100. They have a defensive rating 111 at home versus 117 on the road since the start of December, and have held 7 of their last 14 opponents at home under this total. In fact, like under 108. They've also covered 5 straight at home against teams that are not, what you consider top teams in the league. Basically, the Suns, Clips, and Thunder beat them. But yeah, when they get a bad team at home, like, it's lights out. It's boa constrictor time, as we saw with Portland. That was at Portland. They held like 84, which is unheard of in today's NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I actually liked the Wizards in that Dallas game when it opened at like 14.5 because of the way that the Wizards have been playing defense. Stop me if you heard that before. We haven't called them the Wizards in a while because that's not their biggest problem anymore. Their biggest problem is actually on the offensive end, and they've just at least been putting a bit more effort, it appears, on the perimeter. But yeah, that only just leads to more defense in this one. And if the Pels are going to show up, man, that's great. And it seems like they're beating up on bad teams and kind of being poo-poo on the other ones. But let me go to what I think will be at least a slightly more entertaining game. I know I'll have it on late night, which is the Clippers and the Warriors in this one. And this is a bet slightly predicated on the fact that Kawhi's not in. So I'm taking the Dubs minus 2.5 at home. The red hot Dubs, by the way. I don't know if that's been made clear fully. It has, because we took them took them in their last game against Utah, took the under there to hit them to win that game. And that was predicated on them playing a lot more defense, and that's what they're doing. And now Kawhi's not in, and things just changed. I mean, there's been 4 games this season without Kawhi, which, by the way, shout out Kawhi. I guess we got to give him some praise for participation, right? He's been there for all but 4 games and even played in most of the back-to-backs this season. However, now he's just missing one before the All-Star break, and without him in those 4 games, they're looking at a complete inverse of the team that they are with him. With him, 124 offensive rating, 115 defensive rating. Just go ahead and switch that when he's not in there, right? Just that they reverse and they go from a +9 to a -9. That's a massive swing right there, my man. Like minus 18 essentially on the swing for them when he's not in there. That's a pretty big deal, and he's covered up a few of the blemishes that I think indicate Paul George is on the decline at this point. How many knee and ankle and back surgeries and even wrist surgeries can you have before it's just like, okay, this is taking its toll and you're no longer a top wing defender like that? His on-off numbers are like pretty much even. It seems to be like he doesn't have an impact on the game, which is false. He has an impact on the game, but according to the surface level metrics, he doesn't, right? He's just sort of running around getting some exercise in. But with the way that the Dubs been playing on D lately, it's pretty impressive, right? Like they actually have top 5 net rating, over the course of their last 5 games. You even go back to the last 10, they're still a top 3 team. And their offensive rating has been really good. It's just that D rating. It's number 1 over the last 5, number 3 over the last 10. So they're just keeping that pace up. Speaking of pace, they've been a top 5 team in pace as well. I considered an under without Kawhi, but this Dubs team has been playing at a pretty fast pace, which has helped them a lot, because part of the reason that they were getting into some trouble before the last, basically since Draymond came back, is when they're and other guys, I should be clear, like Gary Payton the second came back as well. Moses Moody, even a guy who leaks out a bit more often, or at least helps start a break, as a guy who can get a rebound and go. Pajemski has been the same way, speeding things up when he's on the floor, and he's been getting 32 to 35 minutes. So with that pace is up there, and I don't think that the Clippers want to play at that pace, especially what we've seen from them on the road, playing a bit slower and good defense when they were winning on the road. And now they've hit a little bit of a slide, still just, sort of hanging around where they're at right now in their record, and not really getting above 500 in their last 6 games or so. And I'm going to believe in that. I mean, I don't think that their 17th net rating that they've had, which has been about a -3 over their last 5 games, that's more of the anomaly to me. But I don't think that they're going to pull out of it in this one without Kawhi against a red-hot Golden State Warriors team that maybe Clay gets going, maybe not. I don't want to have to bank on how the shooting is going to be. The true shooting percentage for them is still, it's good now. It was bad. Now it's good. But more importantly, the thing that I'm hanging my hat on here, -2.5 at home, is that defensive rating and the way that they've limited second chance points, the way they've limited stuff in the paint, and they continue to just like really play better than their I think their actual inherent value is on defense with the culmination of their players.
Yeah, Draymond's back, right? I mean,
Yeah.
vintage Draymond effort to beat Utah, to hold them down at home, which almost never happens. So, yeah, fine riding with the Warriors. It just continues to break right for them, right? When you get no Kawhi
Yeah.
here, it's interesting. You've heard a lot of MVP discourse over the last week or so, and people are like, why isn't Kawhi higher? And nobody's like put their finger on it. It's like, because we expect him to not even play 65 games, and he's played almost every game this season, and it just slides under the radar because you're like, wow, he's doing this efficiently and he's playing. He's been obviously more key for the Clippers than Harden or George or anybody you want to throw in there, other than maybe Ty Lue. But I think without him in there, it's going to be hard to stop this Warriors team that is rolling right now. Let me go to one we both like here. We said it yesterday. We can't wait to bet on the Charlotte Hornets with some value.
Charlotte Hornets.
And sure enough, they get the Hawks, the road tripping Hawks, without either center. So give me Hornets +7 to cover here. No Capella, no Okongwu. And this is already a defense that is just like, it's so hopeless. Like backing them to beat the Bulls the other night, it was just like, there's zero chance they're getting a stop here in the fourth quarter at any point. Like, the Bulls will have to trip over their shoelace and fumble the ball out of bounds for them to not score. Like, this Atlanta defense is utterly hopeless. They also have no AJ Griffin. DeAndre Hunter is still on a minutes limit. Like, there's just not a plus defender out there, and they don't cover. They were covering because they had a long stretch at home. They're 4-14 against the spread their last 18 on the road, including 0-4 in their last 4 as road favorites. The only one game they played without Okongwu, it was a 131-26 win at Washington, and they just like dominated the glass. They got 37 free throw attempts and still let Washington come in the back door there. Yeah. They're allowed 129 a game when they're without Capella. And let's look at the Hornets. Like, the reason we were like interested in them is because the bit of a culture shift. You got new guys in there for sure. 5 new rotation players, which is just a completely new team. It's no longer like by default terrible. Grant Williams and Trey Mann being the best kind of additions to throw in there. They have a 106 defensive rating in their last 2, allowing league low free throw attempts and rebounds. Just the hustle stats, the discipline stats. They actually have covered in 4 of their last 5 at home. So right before those trades, they covered against Lakers and somebody else at home. And, they weirdly won 5 of their last 6 against Atlanta. I guess it's not that weird because Atlanta just doesn't put teams away because you can't get stops. And actually the last 8 for the Hornets, I was surprised to see they have the best defensive rebounding percentage in the league.
Yep.
Fewest second chance of points allowed, and they're 6th in fast break points. So I think they can do a decent job holding the Hawks down here, maybe keeping this game under 238, but I'll just take the points for the home team.
Yeah, I also do think an under is in play here, but Charlotte's live. You knew that I was coming in with Charlotte too, but we both were like, man, just keep betting these Hornets because they're a different team now. They're undervalued. One more guy that I want to mention. Yeah, basically, dude, the Thunder backups were always better than the Charlotte starters, and now the Charlotte starters are comprised of a couple of backups from the Oklahoma City Thunder in that trade that sent them Gordon Hayward. So now we're talking about Micic in there as well, playing some pretty nice ball on offense, some really efficient ball on offense with these teams, but not quite as fast. Definitely brought that pace down to sub 500, sub 100, right around 99 pace, 98.9 in that range. Yeah, just giving up a no fifth. What are they at? 11th best rating, defensive rating over their last 5 specifically. And yeah, that's up hugely just because of the fact that they have been so good in their last 2, right? Playing defense that way. I mean, look, there's still going to be a turnstile down low, but I guess maybe Jalen Johnson goes off. He's been so inconsistent at times that like I don't know for sure if he's going to necessarily just do better scoring wise in this one because he doesn't have a center on his team in terms of Jalen Johnson. But like, yeah, there's nobody protecting the rim anywhere, and they are going to be going to the rim a bit more. And like you said, limiting those second chance points. So yeah, give me those points at home, and I think they're alive to win this one as well. So I'm going to close it out with a little cheat, but look, it's show favorite DeMar DeRozan. If you've been following along for at least a few years, you know how much we love our boy DDR, and I found a good spot for him. So I gotta run this one in best bets, which is over 21.5 for DeMar DeRozan against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is a game that I also bet over originally. I believe it opened at about 220.5. Yeah, it's up at about 224.5, which is what I liked because I think Caruso might not play in this one, but he's impacts DeMar a little bit on offense in terms of not really taking stuff away from him, to be honest with you. So I'm not worried about whether Caruso plays or not. I kind of prefer he doesn't play, mostly because then at least the offense opens up for both teams, and maybe the Cavs are a little bit more relaxed on defense because of the fact that they're able to score more easily from the perimeter. Caruso's individual defensive rating is 108.5. So that really matters for the whole sort of like game theory and flow of the game. But for DeMar specifically, this is a situation where he's just playing, look, maybe the best team, best defense in the league. What are they now? Like 17 of their last 19 games that they've won. The best defensive rating over that time frame for the majority of the season now. We're getting to the point where it's like we can't even just say in the last 15, this team is, no, it's just now they're just the best defensive rating in the league for the Cavs. But the place that they are vulnerable, the only place, is the mid-range. And who is the mid-range maestro and the king of the mid-range? DeMar DeRozan. Throw some Kevin Durant in there, but DeMar's been taking that for the majority of the last couple, since his career started at this point. But they're allowing the 12th most points per game to small forwards. This is the part of the floor where the small forwards operate, obviously. And in the last 7, they're actually giving the 4th most points per game to the small forward position. And Chicago still has the number 1 mid-range frequency, the 9th best field goal percentage from there. I do think that they're pretty good at 9.5, but I would love Caruso to play because of how important Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are to this offense. They need somebody to stop him, and I just don't think it's going to be Ayo Dosunmu and Torrey Craig that are going to be able to slow down those two dudes. I mean, that's it. That's what they have at this point. Because Kobe White, if he's slotted on either of those guys, is going to probably get cooked. He's been a little better on defense. I shouldn't say that. He might be an okay matchup for Garland, but they need Caruso in there for Mitchell. Period. End of story. No questioning that. Right. For DDR, like I said, he's taken all those mid range shots. Obviously, averages the most attempts and points per game from that spot on the floor. The opponent mid range field goal percentage for this team for Cleveland has been about 22%. I'm sorry, they've been 22nd in the league, allowing that, and the frequency is there for them as well, for the opponent as well in these types of games. So I mean, he's gone over this in his last 5. It does seem like we might be in the midst of one of our DeMar DeRozan streaks. Not saying he's going to score like 35 points in 10 straight games or whatever it was a couple seasons ago. But I do think that this is the point of the season where he's just kind of taken over for whatever this team is. I don't really know. It still doesn't have much of an identity, but we know that he and Kobe White will be taking the majority of the shots tonight.
We know DeRozan likes it in Chicago, is what he said. He wasn't that upset about not getting traded and then maybe extending. So, I mean, a couple of things you touched on that I would prefer in this game, which is that Kobe White under 26.5 points and assists. I almost pulled the trigger on that.
Like that
the
too.
Cavs absolutely shut him down the last 2. He hasn't scored over 20 recently. I mean, they're just so good defending point guards and so good off a loss. Like the last time they lost, they came back and just shut Dame down, held him to just gross shooting. And Donnie Mitchell over. Especially when you have Caruso legitimately questionable for Donnie to get 26 points. The thing that gives me pause there is the blowout win, because I do think the Cavs, again, coming off a loss, are just going to put the clamps down here. So, I mean, that would make me concerned about DeRozan is he going to be out there in the fourth quarter with a 9.5 point spread with the Bulls struggling sometimes against top defenses like Cleveland. But If
Yeah.
if it does go 4 quarters, like, yeah, I think he's probably good for this because I think Kobe White will struggle so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had it pointed out to me, too, that the home teams did really well the last 2 seasons against the spread in this game right before the All-Star break. It seems like there might be some mental aspect of I'm already here, so I might as well play. But if you're on the road, you're like, I just want to get home so I can then get to Cancun, right? And
Mhm.
there's a little bit more in between there. But that is all the time we have for you in this one. Continue to follow along, subscribe to that page, like it if you would as well. We also have Play of Props up for you today, as we do each and every weekday. So until we see you next, happy betting.